Hey, for all you gamers out there, listen up. The Austin Symphony Orchestra has an exciting performance coming up called Game On, which combines the music from your favorite video games with never-before-seen HD video. Principal conductor and music director Andy Brick is joining us today to tell us more. Andy, good morning.
Hi, Rosie. How are you?
I'm doing really well. This is such a cool concept, and I was just having a conversation with Broadway actors about how we need to continue to bring in younger brains, younger minds, as we think about moving forward with some of these kind of traditional art approaches like symphonies. So can you tell us a little bit about Game On and what inspired you to put together this series?
Yeah, for sure. And that point about bringing in the new and younger audience is hugely important, which I'll mention in a second. But what inspired me to create Game On and eventually bring it to the Austin Symphony was, well, I started out as a film composer, and I had won this award. I went to Hollywood, and when I was done with the award and my stint in Hollywood, I came back to New York, and a friend of mine said, this would have been like the 1990s. And a friend of mine said, do you want to write music for a game? And I had no idea what he was talking about. I thought he literally meant like Monopoly, the board game, and you write music for like a little piece that's scrolling around the board. But it turned out to be a video game, one of the very first video games, an early video game by a guy by the name of Rick Dyer. So I did that game for him, and then I did a second. And all of a sudden, one thing led to the next, and I was doing video games. And back in about 2003, I was writing some music for a game developer in Europe. And one of the producers there said to me, hey, do you want to do a concert of all symphonic video game music? And I thought, yeah, that would be cool. So we got together with the Czech National Symphony Orchestra, and we did this concert at the Gewandhaus in Leipzig, Germany. And when I got to that first rehearsal, the players were sort of looking around at each other like, what are we doing? What is game music? But we got to the concert hall and it was sold out and the audience went crazy. And I think that early concert back in 2003 was really indicative of a new audience that has emerged since then and in the 20 years. In fact, a couple of years back, I think it was 2 years ago, the BBC in England did a story saying that Gen Y and Gen Z were more likely to go to an orchestra concert than their parents. And for me, one of the missions with Game On has been to sort of foster that excitement, because I think it is part of their music consumption. It's part of what they're listening to on their playlist.
Absolutely. And I think you kind of struck the timing just right, because I think of da 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 da, and that to me isn't symphonic in any way, but at the same time, the time that you were writing for these video games is when these open worlds started being built, and they kind of called for more layers and things like that. So I think it's a really beautiful marriage here. So I love that people are going to be able to see so many video games, quite frankly, that you guys are doing at the concert. So can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect?
Yeah, sure. Well, we're going to be doing like all the greatest music from the history of video games. So we're going to be doing The Witcher 3. We'll do World of Warcraft. We're going to do this really beautiful suite from Ori. We're going to do the Elder Scrolls Skyrim, Assassin's Creed, Guild Wars, but we're also going to do a really new piece, Baldur's Gate 3, which if you're a gamer, you know that just sort of swept the universe of gaming this past year. But also, the concert, if you're not a gamer, we have these high definition videos that run behind the orchestra, and we structured the videos in a way that allows somebody who maybe is not familiar with the game to understand what the game is about, because the video sort of narrates the game as the orchestra gives it emotion and life.
It sounds really cool to me. And I know you touched a bit on your musical background, but I can see, keyboards and all sorts of things. This must be your little think tank studio. So how did you get into doing this in the first place?
Well, I think my background is a little less traditional. My studies, music studies, were almost all private and self-directed. I actually didn't get to music conservatory until I was 25, which seems like a million years ago now, but it actually is quite old for someone to enter into music conservatory. And back in those days, we didn't have like the amazing resources that you now have with the internet. I mean, it's much easier, I think, these days for kids to really become proficient at an instrument in a self-directed way. And then, through the story that I told you, I got into game composing, and game composing led me into conducting and conducting game concerts. And I think the reason why I sort of fell into that was at the time that I got into it, which was the late 90s, video game music was all kind of bleeps and blips until then. And at that point, people started exploring synthesizers and what that could do to soundtracks. And I became a guy who could do orchestral soundtracks because that was my training and my background. And then that led to the full orchestra and the amazing ability to do it with folks like the Austin Symphony.
That's so cool. So I'm hoping to see a lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Zers, people of all ages too, because I know tickets are still available. Lovely to speak to a true creative brain. So we really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I really look forward to seeing Austin, and hope everybody can come out and check out Game On with the Austin Symphony.
That sounds good to me. Okay, guys, get your tickets for the performance. It's happening January 24th at the Long Center. Head to GameOnConcert.com or AustinSymphony.org to learn more.